Welcome to week 3 of creative photography, and this week it's going to be all about food, glorious food. I don't know whether you're aware of it, but roughly 380 million pictures every day are uploaded to Facebook, and I will swear that at least half of them are you showing me pictures of your lunch. So if nothing else, you're going to take better pictures of your lunch by the time you get through with this week's assignments. Again, as always, we're going to be looking at inspiration, perspiration, and a little conceptualization. And this week we're going to start realizing that you can potentially have a career in food photography, going all the way from the farm to the fork. There are people who are photographers making a living, showing us where our food comes from, showing us the fruits and the vegetables growing in the field and on the trees and on the vines. Then there's also the grocery store photography or the food catalog photography, showing the various food products that are available to us. There are recipe magazines, there are books of recipes, there are all kinds of books about how to prepare food. There are also food blogs. That's an increasingly important way to share information about food. People love checking out food blogs. It's other people sharing their information with us. Some people are making a pretty good full-time living from their food blogs. As we'll see, some of them come from a background in either magazine work or maybe television work. The explosion in TV shows, all the way from home cooking on the Food Network to Bravo's Top Chef and Master Top Chef series, has really sparked an interest not only among the foodies but just among people who want to do better cooking at home. A couple years ago, I was working on a book called Foods of Michigan, which was going to be a recipe book featuring all the wonderful fruits and vegetables of Michigan. Michigan is the second most diverse agricultural state behind California, and I wanted to showcase a lot of the different foods in various recipes. And the first thing I discovered was how tough it is to photograph food. So I went out and I bought a couple books, and I have a couple here to recommend to you that go along with the course. This one is by Lou Manna, and it's called Digital Food Photography, and it's really good. It's got an awful lot of practical tips and information about things like lighting and so forth, which you really need to pay attention to. The other one is called Food Styling for Photographers, and this is interesting. It's by Linda Bellingham and Jean Ann Bybee. Linda is the food stylist and Jean is the photographer, and they look at a variety of different tips and tricks on how to make food look more attractive. I thought all you had to do was put a little spritz on top of the food, maybe to keep it looking fresh and dewy, and maybe in between takes put it back into a cooler. But what I soon learned is that there is a whole career that you can launch as a food stylist. It's a high-end requirement to be able to make food look really good even after it's been under hot lights for hours. So I thought we'd have a little fun today and start out by having me combine a couple of the recipes that they had for building fake ice cream. Fake ice cream? Yeah, why would anybody want fake ice cream when the good stuff is so good? Well, it's unethical to show ice cream that's fake if what you're trying to do is sell ice cream. But maybe you have, you're doing a food layout for a magazine, and you are really just showing food as various examples and not for the actual food products themselves. And you're focusing on the main dish, but in the background you want a nice ice cream for dessert. Well, that ice cream is going to melt after a few hours under the lights in any photo shoot. So for that purpose, you need to be able to know how to build your own fake ice cream. Now, I found out that one of the tricks is you can make it either out of a Crisco type product, you know, that kind of thing, add a little cane sugar or a little corn syrup to make it stiffen a bit and get a little gluey, or you can use the whipped kind of frosting right out of a can and mix it. But I found out that there are two real tricks to this. One is that you need to be able to have enough powdered sugar, and this bag is no exaggeration, because ice cream, you know, barks. I didn't know that was the term, but when you scoop it and it has those ridges and they look sort of rough, that's called barking on ice cream, and you want to make sure that that looks accurate or nobody's going to buy the fact that that's ice cream. The other thing you need is a little Elmer's glue, not just to glue one thing to another, but when you want to have the ice cream look like it's melting at the edges, you can put a little Elmer's glue on. So I've never done this before. I'm relying on their expertise, and I'm sure I'm going to make some flubs along the way. But let's use this gear in order to be able to take a look at some of how you would make some fake ice cream for your first photo shoot, just for fun. Here's my trusty KitchenAid, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put in about a cup of Crisco, some kind of all vegetable shortening, about a cup. We're going to bump that right in there. Put that in there. That should be enough. The next magic ingredient in our fake ice cream is going to be the corn syrup. So we're going to take a cup of that. Let me see. Ew. Gluey corn syrup. I don't think we're going to want to eat this at the other end. It's not going to be too appetizing. Pour that right into our KitchenAid. Now, the big trick, I gather, is going to be this, they say 3 pounds worth of powdered sugar. So I'm going to start dumping in the powdered sugar here. Start getting that in there. Time to turn on the KitchenAid. Keep adding that powdered sugar. It is starting to look a bit like it. Now I guess what I have to do as well is I don't have vanilla beans, and I'm not willing to sacrifice a $10 one just to make it look like vanilla ice cream. So I'm going to try to make a little strawberry. Let's see if I can add a little red food coloring. And I'll keep adding my powdered sugar. The trick is to get it to the point where it barks. Looks to me like we're getting somewhere. Let's see if this is about right. Let me turn this off. Let me stick. Oh, wow. That is looking like ice cream to me. Let me grab a sugar cone here. I'm gluten-free, so I can't eat any of this, but trust me, with all the stuff we've got in here, I don't think I'm going to want to be eating this. Now, they say that you use your hands a lot in this job, so I'm not going to use a scoop. I'm going to take what looks like a scoop of ice cream here. I'm going to place it into my cone. Oh, that does. That's starting to look like ice cream. Now, what makes ice cream look authentic as well is that you have what's called a collar around the bottom. So I'm going to want to try to shape this with my hands. Oh, look at that. It's starting to get to be sort of like a scoop of ice cream here. Yeah, not bad. Put that around. Put a piece of that below to make it look scoopy. Oh, that's not bad for flake ice cream, is it? I'm pleased. For a first try, that's not bad. Now, oops, I lost part of it. Now, what you can do is you can take your Elmer's glue then, and you put a little line on it to make it look like it's melty. Use your fingers to try to move that around a little bit, make it look like it's melty. There's an ice cream cone that would pass muster. Obviously, when you're doing food styling, you'd be spending an hour on each scoop of ice cream, I think, in order to try to make it look just perfect. But for a first try, I don't think that's too bad. You can see that there's a potential there to really do cool stuff. Now, I don't think I'm in any danger of having the Food Network call to ask me to be part of their new Food Network Star series. I don't cook that well in the first place, and in the second place, it seems like I'm a little clumsy in the kitchen. But at least we got our ice cream cone made, and there are all kinds of food styling tips in there that you're going to want to pay attention to. I like the one where they use mashed potatoes in a pie crust and then put the fruit for the pie on top. It photographs better if there's sort of this plain white background in behind the fruit filling that you're going to have in your pie. Those are the kinds of tips and techniques. You've got to be careful you don't go over that ethical line, but they can make the food look a lot more appetizing. My friend Retha, her sister Vera, was putting slices of egg on top of potato salad once, and I was saying, why are you spending all your time being so careful with each one of those egg slices? And she said, keep in mind, people eat with their eyes. And I thought, Vera's onto something there. So we're going to take a look at some examples of excellence. That's always part of what we do for our inspiration section. You know, you can go to websites and see the kinds of food photography that they're doing. I visited Vegetarian Times, for example. That's a place where I rely on for an awful lot of recipes. And they do a good job. You can tell that they're using professional photographers who've really taken time. And again, the best idea to learn how to do something well is to take a look at the people who are already doing it well. Painting with light. In the conceptualization section, there's going to be some links to places that can give you information on how to improve the lighting for home food photo shoots that you're going to do. Things like building a simple light box. It allows you to put in a single plate of food, or maybe a single food item. You want to have an egg photographed really well. And it gives you that all-round clear lighting that makes something look really appealing, gives it that professional snap. You don't need to spend a fortune, however. There are plenty of people who found inexpensive ways to do that. Obviously, you don't have as much control over the light when you're out at a restaurant, especially if you want to show people the kinds of things where you've gone to a place and you're going to share a recipe from someplace else at a restaurant, show their food. One of the things I recommend is, the little lights that they sell that you can use for your to see your books at night so that you don't disturb the people around you. This actually has enough light sometimes to add just enough. You want to have that food have the majority of the light on the food itself, but you don't want to come straight onto the food. You want to have it from one side or the other. Place the plate in the place that's going to give you the optimal lighting. Take a look at it, even if you're only using a cell phone. But carry that little light gizmo in your purse or in your photo bag, and you may have a superior photograph just by adding just enough light to make it that much more appealing. Epicurious is another good place to check on. I also like Savour. An awful lot of magazines have also transferred to the web, and so they put up more and more recipes. So those of you who are looking to do photography as a living might want to think about specializing in an area like this. Cooking Light always has wonderful looking recipes. I love their photography. There's old Standby is Gourmet magazine, of course, and they're sort of the granddaddy of them all, and you can always rely on them having good looking images. The other thing that you should know about is that people can sell their images on places like iStock Photo and Shutterstock. It seems people are always looking for images, in particular those that come from the farm or those of various kinds of fruits and vegetables. People who do blogs sometimes do some of that food photography as well. The websites that we're going to look at were chosen by other publications or other blogs as being the best of the best in food photography from a number of different sources. I like the simplicity of this site. I mean, this is the one that is called 101 Cookbooks, and it has quite a nice, simple appeal. Cannelle and Vanille is another simple, elegant kind of design. The website itself sort of fades into the background, and you can see that that image of the apple looks really great and just sort of pops out of the website itself. 7 Spoons is another one that has a very simple design, a simple logo. Obviously, it's made out of 7 spoons. They've also done things like they have examples of the photography right in the middle of the blog, in between, showing you different views of the same thing that you might see earlier, using more than one photograph of the same recipe. This is Almost Bourdain, and I like the way that you see people eating the food here. The question sometimes is whether it's just going to be the static food on a plate or whether you actually see somebody about to devour the food. I like Dana Treat's site. This is just gorgeous, and I think that even a simple dish like this, veggies and dip, she's arranged it so artfully on the plate, and it's so beautifully lit that it's really appealing. This is a site called Simmerdown, and I think if you were looking for an image for a magazine, you might say that the image of the meatball is a little bit too ragged, that you'd have to bring in a food stylist to do something a little bit more sophisticated with it. But I think that's part of the charm of a food blog as well, is that you can be a little bit more informal, a little more casual. It doesn't have to look quite as slick and polished. But if the food looks appetizing and people want the recipe, then I think it can be successful. This is Food 52, and it again is one of those sites that was created by people who have a very strong professional background. They've decided that blogging may be their future. I think one of them is a New York Times former writer. So you have people who are moving from other professional fields, reinventing themselves and bringing that basket of skills into something like a food blog that they are trying to turn into a financial success at the same time. This one I chose because I particularly like the look of the glassware, and I thought that it was beautifully lit, ideally. Great stuff here. Part of the challenge is creating a color palette, making sure that all the elements that are in the image look good together, that the colors blend. You see, in this case, the napkin has to be perfectly folded. Everything has to be ironed. Make it look really good. Make sure it's placed artfully on the table. I thought this, for a rustic setting, this was absolutely gorgeous. I love the bright color on the plate. I like the idea of the boards behind it. Part of what I think people have to decide is, are you going to photograph the food from above? Are you going to photograph it from the side? I remember having an editor look at me once and say, you know, it looks like that food is going to slide off the plate the way you have it placed here. And this kind of looks like the food might slide off the plate. So picking the angle that you're going to photograph the food is another part of the decisions that you have to make in terms of composition. I included this example of chaotic kitchen because one of the challenges that you face with the blog is that if you want it to be successful, you look for advertising models that will work with your blog. And in this case, part of putting in something like a Google ad or another professional ad, you can end up with the advertising being jarring. The same thing happens, of course, in magazines. Sometimes you have the luxury of a two-page beautiful layout with no ads on the page, but you do need to find a way to support yourself doing this. So if you're going to have advertising on the page, one of your challenges is to try to do it in a way that it's a bit artful. If you control your own advertising, if you work with companies that you think would be compatible with your blog and approach them, maybe you can work with them to have them produce ads that fit with the design of your blog, or enter into affiliate marketing campaigns where you can choose the layout of the ad and the look of the ad that goes along with your particular blog. That's critically important if you want your food photography to stand out, because part of what people like is the experience. I mean, they can't taste the food. That's always the challenge on those Food Network shows, is that everybody sits down at Iron Chef at the end and the food looks gorgeous, but you can't eat it. You don't know what it really tastes like. But you want that secondhand experience, and the only way that you can have that is if the food looks really good. I thought this was a nice, simple design. I think the header is a little bit busy, a little bit difficult to read. The design of many blogs includes a header. They're often strongly horizontal, so you have to find an image that's going to look good, where it is going to be much wider than it is deep. This is a site called The Pioneer Woman, and I just love the elegant, delicate header that they have. It seems to capture the spirit so well. Look at the beautiful photography on this site. This is what really sells this site. This is an exceptional site. It's always at the top of the list of the best food photography blogs. Part of the technique of including information on your blog is to do an elegant photograph of a single ingredient. In this case, we have a mushroom with a knife next to it. I believe these are chanterelles. And they're artfully placed. They're against an interesting background, photographed well. You can include these examples of ingredients along the way, not just the finished plates, to add additional interest to your blog. Sometimes you'll do a posting about the ingredient and not just about a dish. These are opportunities as well to show the steps. This is a site called Roost, and this image and the next one shows you, this is further down in the blog, shows you the various steps they use to produce this dish. That's often a valuable technique, and I like the way they group these images so that you can see the techniques used to grill the peaches and grill, I believe, that zucchini and assemble it then on the plate. In this case, they added a nice food quote there as well, which I think is a nice touch. It's all about words and images when you're trying to encourage people to return to your blog. Simmerdown is another interesting site. Uses natural light. You can see that it doesn't have that sort of slick polish of a professional photograph, but at the same time it's lit well. You can also, as they do in this site, show the eaters. Show the people dining on your food after you've served it, especially in a social situation. Food is social, and you're going to want to be able to photograph the people as well as you photograph the food. Look at all the steps that they go through to show you all the ingredients. This is still part of that Simmerdown site. Ingredients and techniques along the way. And again, it repeats again, showing you some more of the techniques and then the food, people eating the food at the end. So that one recipe goes into quite a long vertical scroll as you see all the different steps that it took. And then finally again as we see the eaters at the beginning, and then we see the eaters again at the end. Now, there are some clever things that I found when I was looking at this kind of photography, and one in this case is the strawberry shortcake cookies. First you see the cookies after they've been baked, but then you see a cookie and all of a sudden, whoop, because of an animated GIF, you see a splatter of that icing being put down on top of the cookie. This is a technique that was used. Animated GIFs are a series of still photographs that kind of play like a video. And that's what they've done, and it plays over and over and over again. So on the second image on their blog about these strawberry cookies, we go from this one cookie having the icing, and you see the icing being splattered onto all of the different cookies, and then finally we see all of the cookies at the end that now have the icing on them. It's an interesting technique, and I think it was quite successful, and I'll bet you that that added a lot of enough interest that that recipe was probably shared more than others. One of the challenges, I think, is in using dark colors for a food blog. I'm not sure that they're as successful. This one is quite well done. One of their images is a little dark, the second image on the page, but I'm not sure that black works well with food in many cases, unless you're going for a very high-end, elegant food, almost a restaurant-type food. So choosing the palette for the theme for your site is another important part of the process. You know, you can go to Blogspot and you can go to WordPress.com, both of them, and get a free blog and start blogging right away if you've got an idea for a good food blog. What Katie Ate. What a great name for a blog, isn't it? And these are just a few examples of the kinds of food photography that she uses on her site to show you what it is that she ate. And I'm assuming she does both things she's cooked herself, things her friends have cooked, and maybe even restaurants as well. I haven't been following the blog that long, but I love the look of these images. It's expensive sometimes to do this kind of blogging because you have to keep coming up with new recipes with interesting new ingredients. And sometimes it gets pretty expensive just to have the food that you're putting into your food blog, especially as food prices are going up. There are those niches. This is a gluten-free niche. I like the way that the woman has herself photographed, and at the top of her blog we get to know who she is. I like blogs that give me some idea of who the person is. Gives me an idea about their personality and not just the food. That can be an appealing way to build an audience. International. Keep in mind that there may be different tastes and looks for different kinds of international food, but boy, international cuisine is a huge part of the market nowadays. My friend Maki, she and I used to edit the Wise Women of the Web publication together, and she is a noted web designer, but she also started a site that showcased some bento recipes. Bento are those clever little Japanese where you carve the food out of different things, and you can have little dragons and penguins and all sorts of interesting things made out of food items that you put into a little bento box for lunch. Kids love it. It's just great. I think adults love it as well. Well, Maki has started this site and it's become very successful, and it's called Just Bento. And she's got a whole business built around it now, very successful. So if you find the right niche and you've got the technical skills to be able to produce images that really engage people, you can make a success of this kind of enterprise. I think maybe my favorite new site is called My New Roots, and I don't know this woman. I don't have any reason to promote any of these sites, but I just think her stuff is gorgeous. It's all about healthy eating, so there's a lot of recipes there that I really like. But take a look at these images. This is a crusted cauliflower that's just fantastic looking on the plate. She goes in for close-ups on various ingredients, and it just has a nice casual feel. Notice how she set the depth of field so that the background gets sort of smorged out and the ingredient pops. Isn't this beautiful? Just using a mortar and pestle here, focusing on one step of the recipe and doing it with an elegant photograph that really draws you into it as a design element, showing us the final recipe on the plate in more than one look. Just beautiful looking stuff. This is all part of that same sort of recipe, showing us all of the ingredients. This is a corn and chipotle soup, and it has cashews in it. And so she shows you the cashews as they're soaking in a bowl, and it's just a beautiful, lovely photograph. It's just fun to look at. Then we see another example of the same bowl of soup, but from a different angle. We get to see a little bit more of the tablecloth behind it, that lacy look. Everything artfully placed, composition is gorgeous, the lighting is perfect. Clearly this is a highly professional blog, but at the same time it really has that sort of warm and welcoming feel, that sort of casual feel that you're trading recipes over the back fence with a very talented cook who lives next door, who knows how to showcase their food and show it to you. I hope this is enough to be inspirational, and that now you'll take advantage of the opportunity for a little perspiration. Go out and photograph breakfast, maybe lunch, maybe dinner, maybe all three, maybe something you cooked, maybe something out at a restaurant, or give me an image of an ingredient. Maybe you want to do an artful still life of lemons and eggs. Wouldn't those be pretty together? Figure out maybe that it's time for a trip to a farmer's market or time for a trip to the farm. See if you can get me some images of food in its raw state, from farm to fork. Thank you for joining us, and next week tune in again because we're going to take a look at photographing nature. After that, the built environment, and then after that we're going to talk about manipulating images. Thank you very much for joining us at Creative Photography, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.